Lesson 2, A Taxing Time, the Boston Tea Party. Can you remember the names of the 3 English settlements in North America that we learned about in the last read aloud? They were Plymouth, Roanoke Island, and Jamestown. These were some of the first English settlements in North America. As time passed, more and more English settlers arrived in North America. All up and down the east coast of North America, they formed more colonies where they started new lives for themselves. The country that many of the people who lived in the colonies originally came from was Great Britain. There were 13 different or separate colonies along the coast of North America that the British settled. The British king and his parliament governed and controlled the colonies. When the colonists needed more help to clear additional land for farming, they brought people from Africa and made them work as enslaved people. You are learning about some of the important events that led to the creation of our country or nation, the United States of America. Listen carefully to learn about some of the problems the colonists encountered and to find out why colonists did something drastic when they had the Boston Tea Party. There were 13 original colonies in the United States. They are Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. For a long time, many colonists were proud to be British citizens, ruled by the King of Great Britain. But then things began to change. The King and the British Parliament had spent a lot of money helping to set up and protect the colonies. To help pay for these expenses, Parliament decided to make the colonies in America pay taxes to Great Britain. Taxes are extra money people pay when they buy certain things. For example, today we may pay taxes when we buy clothes at a department store, food in a restaurant, or gasoline for the car. Depending on the state where you live, you might have to pay $1 or $2 more for your new shirt than what's listed on the price tag, or a few extra cents for your sandwich than the price listed on the menu. But these stores do not keep this extra money. They must give the extra money, or taxes, to the government. These days, we vote and elect representatives, or people to represent us in government. These people make decisions about how to best spend taxes to provide public services that benefit all who live here. The government uses the taxes to help pay for things that everybody needs, like schools, public transportation, roads, water and garbage service, police and fire protection, and other public services. But back in the time when the colonies were first established, the people who lived in the colonies were not permitted to vote and elect representatives, or people to represent them, in the British Parliament on the other side of the ocean. The room in the image is one of the rooms in Great Britain in which the British Parliament meets. So, many people who lived in the American colonies in the 1700s felt that it was unfair for the British king to ask them to pay taxes. The colonists were asked to pay extra for stamps, sugar, and other things. Because the colonists could not voice their opinions to the British government through representatives, why, they wondered, should they have to pay taxes? It just didn't seem fair to them. All over the colonies, people grew more and more angry, but it was in the colony of Massachusetts that tempers flared the most. King George of Great Britain sent troops to try to keep the peace in Boston, but it did not help very much. The people in the colony of Massachusetts were really mad about paying taxes. Then, in 1773, the British Parliament did something that the colonists could not stand. They passed a law called the Tea Act and tried to force the colonists to buy tea from one British company only, charging a large tax for the tea. The colonists did not think it was fair to force them to pay more for tea, and they refused to pay taxes on tea, one of their favorite drinks. They began sending shiploads of tea back to Britain and ordering tea from the Dutch Republic instead. The Dutch Republic was the name of the country we now know as the Netherlands. This made the king even angrier. He told them that they could not send any more tea back to Great Britain without paying the tax. Because of this, the colonists of Massachusetts revolted, or rose up against the British king. They decided that they would not accept the king's decision. Why do you think the colonists ordered tea from the Dutch Republic? Shiploads of British tea continued to enter the port of Boston, Massachusetts. A port is a place on the coast where ships load and unload goods. On a December night in 1773, a group of men known as the Sons of Liberty planned a most unusual tea party. If we were going to have a tea party, what might we do? Listen to see if that is the kind of tea party the Sons of Liberty had. Smearing their faces with soot, grease, and streaks of red paint, they stuck feathers in their hair. Disguised as Mohawk Native Americans, a common symbol of freedom at the time, they made their way down to the harbor, or the water along the coast. Climbing aboard 3 British ships, they dumped 342 chests of valuable tea into the Boston harbor. This meant that the British lost tea and money. This event became known as the Boston Tea Party. Furious, King George of Great Britain closed the port of Boston, one of the American colony's most important ports. He told them that they would not receive any more goods from Britain until they paid for the tea that they had destroyed. With no supplies coming from Great Britain, there was nothing for the colonists to sell in their shops, so people had to close their shops. The building in the image is a shop in Boston that was owned by a man named Paul Revere. You will learn more about Paul Revere in the next read aloud. Many people lost their jobs. Food was scarce. Colonists from up and down the East Coast helped out, sending money and supplies to Massachusetts. What were the colonists to do? What should they say to the British king? The people of Boston began to talk of war against Great Britain and its king, but other colonists warned them not to act so quickly. Wait a bit, they suggested. It is never a good idea to fight back without cooling off a bit first. All 13 colonies decided to come up with a plan together. They held a big meeting in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, about midway between the farthest New England colonies and the farthest southern colonies. Each colony elected representatives to attend the meeting. It wasn't possible for all the colonists to attend the meeting, so each colony sent a few people to speak for them. It was the first time that representatives from all the colonies, except Georgia, met together in one place. They called themselves the Continental Congress. Leaders in the colonies were divided. Some remained loyal or faithful to Great Britain and the king. They were called Loyalists. After all, they said, we're British too. Others were beginning to think of themselves not as British citizens but as Americans. They wanted to rule themselves instead of being ruled by a faraway king. These people were called Patriots. Members of the Continental Congress included George Washington. He's on the left. From Virginia, a young army commander who had helped protect the colonies. In the middle, Benjamin Franklin attended the second meeting of the Continental Congress, a Philadelphian known for his ability to get people to work together. And on the right, though unable to attend, Thomas Jefferson, known as an excellent writer, was elected as a representative from Virginia. Remember, from left to right, George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, and Thomas Jefferson. At that first Continental Congress, the representatives decided to approach the king in a friendly way. They sent him a letter, telling him that they wanted to work things out peacefully. They asked the British Parliament to stop making laws or rules for them. We feel that we should create our own laws since we're not able to vote for laws in Parliament, they said. In the meantime, while they waited for an answer from the king, the colonists decided to stop selling goods to Great Britain and to stop buying goods from Great Britain. The the representatives met in this building in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. At the end of the meeting, the colonists were still split in their opinions about what to do. The Loyalists hoped that the king would grant their requests, letting them make their own laws while still remaining British. The Patriots kept things stirred up, talking of going to war and breaking away from Britain altogether. So the Loyalists and Patriots did not agree about what to do. The Loyalists were loyal to whom? The king. The Patriots wanted to make their own laws. Did they want to obey the king any more? No, they did not. It certainly was not a calm time. What are taxes, and what are they used for? What is a representative? Why did the king and the British Parliament decide to tax the British colonies in America? How did the British colonists feel about being taxed? Why do you think they felt that way? What was the Boston Tea Party? Was it actually a tea party? What was the colonists' next plan for solving the problem with the British king? Did the Boston Tea Party solve the problem of tea being taxed? Did everyone agree on what should be done? In the read aloud you heard, King George told the colonists that they would not receive any more goods from Britain until they paid for the tea that they had destroyed. Say the word goods with me. Goods. Goods are things that can be traded, bought, or sold. The workers unloaded goods from the ship in the harbor. Have you ever bought or sold any goods? I'm sure that you have. What's the word we've been talking about? I'm going to list several things. If something can be bought, traded, or sold, say goods. If something cannot be bought, traded, or sold, say not goods. Freedom. Clothes. Pineapples. The moon. Love. Rings.